We're going to get started now today. Today's webinar is on pricing with code tables, which is a really important part of FrameReady because it's available in almost every aspect or every group in the price codes file. First of all, let's go into FrameReady, and I'm going to open FrameReady up here. And we're going to take a look at the price codes file. So that's where we're going to be working with the most, right up here in the price codes file. And I want to go, first of all, to almost any record and to get to the code tables. There's a number of ways to go there. So if you're looking at any one record in the form view, most cases the code tables button is going to be over here on the left-hand side of the screen. You can simply just click on that button and it will take you directly to the code table that you are actually using for the product that you were looking at. If it doesn't have a code table, it will just go to probably your first code table that's on there. Another way to get there is through the dark blue tab on the right-hand side from the mounting pricing or fabric pricing or matboard pricing, whichever one it is. And then you'll see that there's a gray set of tabs and code is always on the right-hand side. And when you click on code, you can go right down again to the code tables button at the bottom of that screen. And that's going to be the same as if you were clicking it on the left-hand side of the screen. And that's available in almost all of these screens. They're, well, from fitting all the way up to molding. And molding is a little bit different because most times you don't use molding, but it's rather new to our screens here. And if you go over to the code pricing, you'll see that there is a section there for the code pricing. This is mostly used by Canadians, but we're going to talk about that in a little bit too, how you can use it. But then there's also the section under minimum and surcharges where we have the code tables button. So you won't see the code tab under molding, but you will see it under the minimum and surcharges. And then you can go to the code table from there. So let's go to the code table and take a look at it and see what you can do here. As I mentioned, it's available for almost every single group in FrameReady. And we're going to take a look at the screen to see all the features here that you could be using. First of all, let's start out with creating a brand new code table. When you click on the create a new code table button, there are a series of options that you can use. If you wanted to create just a short code table, a blank code table is the best option. You choose the blank one. There's also the FrameReady default sizes and the standard default sizes that you can choose. And we're going to take a look at those and I'll show you the difference between those two. And then you also have the option of creating something by an increment of 2 united inches, 3 united inches, 4 united inches, 6 united inches. So you can create a very small infinite chart. Once you've selected the one that you want, you also have the option to put in what is the price per united inch that you want to create this with. So if you decided I'm going to type in the number 1, so it's going to be $1 in there, so that when you create it, it's going to be $1 per united inch for the standard FrameReady default sizes, and you click proceed, it's going to ask you to create a code table name. Now the code table names, make them short. You do not need to have really long ones because this is just a short code that you're going to create. And if it's something for Matboard, I might start with MAT01, MAT02. If it's for mounting, MNT01, MNT02. So I'm just going to, for today, say AA01. And then click on this to create the code table, and then it's created it. There's also a field at the top here where it says code table note, and this note will appear beside that number. So if I wanted to put in a note there about the pricing to say that this was $1 per UI, so that I know where I came up with that pricing or if I've added something to it, or I may want to say that what this is specifically for. So I'm going to type in that it was designed for Matboard. So maybe that's what I want to do. But when I assign it to an item, whatever item that I've assigned it to, it will appear in this list below. So I don't necessarily need to put what it's for in the list unless, you know, it may be glass. You want to say this is for conservation, this is for museum. So that's a way that you can do it. The date, the current date will automatically appear on the right-hand side, okay? If you decide that you want to change that date, you can click on the calendar to the right and then reselect the date. If the date's gone, just click on the word today down at the bottom and that will put the date in. So that's how you can see the date. Now, I wanted to show you the difference between those two screens, and I'm going to go back to my desktop for a moment because I want to show you the difference between the code tables. So this chart is what would be designed if you used the standard FrameReady default code. And this is the listing that you would receive if you created the code table with the glass defaults. So you can see the glass default has a lot more options for you, different sizes that you can use, and the FrameReady default has fewer options in it. So it's just a matter of which one you decide you want to use. You can use either one at any time. Now, once you've created the code and you're thinking, well, I've got a lot of numbers in there, maybe I don't want to have all of these in here, then you could, or if you want to add in another one, you can always go down to the bottom of the screen and type in another size that you want to have added in here. So I'll throw something else in there. It's going to automatically create the United Inch and the square inch for you, and then you can put the price in that you want. Now, if you decide that you don't want it after all, you can just use the teal colored button to remove it. If it's a size that should be going up higher in the list, so maybe I want to make this 9 by 10, okay, and I'm going to put a crazy number in there so it's easy to find, you'll see that it's going to resort itself and put it up here at the top. So it will resort. If it doesn't automatically resort, click the done button, come back to the screen, and it will resort itself. I know on older versions we needed to do that. Otherwise, you can just clean them up as you go. The other ways of creating a code table in here are by using the glass pricer. And we've covered this in another webinar on glass pricing, so that you can go in here and create, build a new table, go into the right-hand side here to create a new code table if you want, or if you want to create a new one, type in the code name for it, or at least check to make sure it's not a code name that you already have. Okay, if you're doing a glass one, because if you do click in here and you select a code table, then it's going to write over top of that code table that you've selected. So that's using the glass pricer to work with the code tables. The other benefits of creating code tables is that you can adjust them by percentage. Now do be careful, this one will adjust all of your code tables by percentage. So every single thing that's in here will be adjusted. This button, however, will only adjust the current code table. And so when you click on it, it's going to ask you, do you want to increase it or decrease it? And then what is the percentage amount that you want to decrease it or increase it by? Normally, I would type in a decimal amount. You don't have to. If you do type in 10, though, click outside in the pink area so that you can see and make sure that it is the correct amount that you want. Because if you did happen to type in 1, it may ask you, is this 1% that you want? Because it would result as 100. If that's not what you intended to have 100%, then click on 1 to make sure that it's 1% that you're entering in. But my strong recommendation is that whatever number you type in there, that you click outside the box to see if it's going to put in the amount that you want before you click the proceed button. Okay, click cancel on that one. Duplicating a code table is really practical, especially if you have several code tables that you're trying to create and they're just a little small variation. So for instance, if I was creating a short code table, I could come back in and duplicate it because I have a series of code tables that we're going to talk about a little later. And since they're a small code table, I could say that this one's going to be nothing over 72 by 96. Say, and I'm going to duplicate the current code table and then just go in and change the numbers that I need to change, or change the prices that I need to change, and then change the note, so that I have everything done very quickly and easily just by duplicating the code table. Now, if you are one of our Canadian clients, this is the button that you would use if you wanted to update your vendor code tables. And that's for the Canadian companies that supply a matrix, which is a suggested retail price for your pricing. This will update all of those for you. Okay, if you're doing your vendor updates, that's great. Your vendor updates are going to bring in new Moulding, new Matboard, but this is what's going to update the matrix, the retail pricing. Okay. So let's go over to delete the code table. So if there is one that you decide you don't want, you can click on that button. Don't worry, it's not going to delete the one you're on. It's going to ask you which one do you want to delete. So we're being very cautious here so that if I do go in and find one that I want to delete, once I've selected it, then I can delete the table and it will be gone. You can also print out your code table. If you are on a Mac, you'll have the option to print as PDF, or if you're on Windows, you might have the option to print it as a PDF as well, save as a PDF. But it will give you the sizes, the XY, if you have that on there, and the retail price. There are 2 columns, just in case it's a really long one, it will show up in 2 columns rather than just 1 column per page. So those are the basics of the screen. When you are creating those code tables that just have the UI in them, and I believe I do have some of those down here a little later, these long codes that you're looking at, those are the Canadian matrix codes. So if you don't have a lot in your list, that could be why. Because you don't have the Canadian codes in. If you are a US client and you have all of those in there, at some point in time you've updated the Canadian codes and put them all in. You may want to delete them. If you need some help deleting them, let us know. So here's a code table that's based on the United Inch. It is not based on the XY value. So that means that when it gets to a certain United Inch, as soon as it goes up to 13 United Inches, it will automatically go up to the next bar. To price out the item. However, the other code tables that we have in here, and I'm just going to go to one of the glass ones instead, these are by the XY, meaning that when you're pricing these items, it's going to say if it's below 8 by 10, then it will be this dollar amount. If it goes above 8 by 10, even if it's 8.5 inches by 10 inches, it will automatically go up to the next level and price out at that value rather than the smaller one. So that's how it moves up and down as we go through. Now, there are certain screens. So this is the basics of the code table screen. We're going to go and take a look at combining the code table with a formula. There are certain screens that will allow you to do that. There are only 4 of them to be exact. So Matboard is one of them. Fabric is the second one. Mounting is another option, and glass. It is only those 4 screens that will allow you to combine the formula with a code table. So if we click on Matboard pricing, you'll see that there's a box here in the center in the blue section that you can click on, and that will combine the code. Now, if I was to put a code in here and I select any code that I want, and we'll just pick one of those. So now everything is going to be priced by the code table because the code table takes precedence. It doesn't matter that I have a markup and a set price or a minimum price or anything else on the left-hand side. It's pricing strictly by that code table and that code table only. But if I click on the button over on the right-hand side and put a check mark in the box to combine the code table and the formula, you'll see that the prices have changed on the right-hand side. And at the top of the screen, it's also mentioning to me that a combined formula and code table is going to be used for this item. So that's how you're going to combine the 2 of them together. And we're going to look at a few applications of how we can use this. In the meantime, Chrissy, if you want to go ahead and run our first poll.
Yep, I can do that.
Okay.
I'm going to launch it. So which of the following do you use? Pricing by X and Y, pricing by United Inch, pricing by square inch, increase codes by percentage, or combine codes with other formulas?
Any questions yet, Chrissy?
Yes, I do have one. And
okay.
The question is, when you created the code table and added the UI price of $1, why, when you added a size, did the system not auto-calculate the price?
Okay. So if I entered in that it was $1 per United Inch, it did calculate the retail prices at $1 per United Inch for the exact sizes that I had. Now, if I enter in a new item down at the bottom of the screen, it can't calculate the retail price for the new item that I've added in for the new size.
I will share our results.
Excellent. Oh, XY, yeah, that way I would expect that. Yeah, okay, great. And pricing by United Inch. Square inch, yeah, I wouldn't use that very much either. Increases in combining. Okay, great. Wow, that's great feedback. Thank you. Super. So we're going to go on and take a look at another part of the program, and that is creating a matte curve. And that's in that document that I handed out to you. And this was something that people had talked to me before about. And if you were going to be pricing a matte, and I'm going to take this one off, and we're going to clear. So that's a good point. Just by unchecking this doesn't mean that it isn't pricing by the combined formula anymore. It means it's now pricing only by the code table. That's it. So if I don't want to price by the code table anymore, it's not enough just to remove that check mark. I need to remove the code table as well, so that it's off. So now I'm pricing by my markup and my set price, and I do have a minimum price in there as well. But what we found is that sometimes if you had an old pricing structure, your old pricing structure may have inflated some of the sizes in a prime area for you. So that if you had completed or ran your work order report to say, what are the sizes that I usually sell? What's my average size? And you may want to bump up the prices in a certain area. So whatever that area is, you can take a look at it and say, yep, I want the prices to come up. So this is creating a matte curve to give you a little bit of additional profit in the sizes that you sell the most. Sometimes the matte curve, when you create this and you look at it, it has a dip in the middle. So what we want to do is bring that up a little bit. So I want to show you how to do that. We're going to go over to the code tables, and one of the things that I've created on here, and in all the new programs, you should be able to see it in there. It's already included, and it's called Matte Curve 12 or Matte Curve, and that's all it says. And what it is selected sizes in here based on the United Inch, and it starts out in small increments and moves upward until we got to whoever I was working with. They had a certain size that they wanted it to go up to because that's what their old chart had, and we wanted to go up to that size. And that was fine. Moving up in price to that size was really easy. What was difficult was moving back down and bringing this down gradually enough so that it didn't have larger sizes that were actually pricing lower than they should have. So I'm going to take this curve, and it's already being used on one of these mat boards. So I'm going to go show you how this affects the mat board pricing. So I'm going to go back up to list view. And I've marked all these records, so I'm going to say find the marked records. And here's the one that we've got that's the standard FrameReady default formula. And I'm going to go there, and I'm going to use the price comparison button in the bottom left-hand corner so that we can compare these together. So when we look at them, here's our default mat one. So this is the standard FrameReady mat board pricing. But then what I've done is I've added on that little curve. And when we look at the mat board curve combined with the formula that we have, the markup and set price, you can see that it brings the prices up just a little bit in the center section. Full size mat, no difference. Sorry, the 8 by 10 has a little bit, maybe 50 cents. There's that 50 cents that was added on, but it's in this center section that it really makes a difference. Now you're wondering, how do I create this curve? So I've given you that tool as well. So back to the items that we have down here. So this is my code tester. And this is a handout or the download that you can have. So what it is a chart that I used to find out if I was increasing my amounts up to, so I had this one go up to $11. And then if it was going down in price, what I really wanted to watch was the retail price plus the code over on the right-hand side to find out, do the prices continue to go up? Because what I found was that if I change this, and this is now 6, and this is 5, and this is 4, what was happening is that I could actually get prices that were going to wind up being lower than the amount that was down at the bottom. Okay, this chart shows you every single United Inch on the left-hand side. There's the cost per square inch, the cost per United Inch, and you're wondering how's everything calculated? Well, down at the bottom of the screen, there's a place here where you can say, what's the price of the mat board? And we can put that price of the mat board in. Okay, what's the markup that you're going to be using? And you can enter the markup in. And then what's the set price that you have on this? And I'll say 15. Okay, and then it takes this code that you've created so that you can see it on the right-hand side and find out if the prices are going down correctly or if they're going down too quickly. So let me just do 2 and then 1, and then we'll just delete some of these. And so that the chart's going to just hang on to whatever you have in that chart. And yeah, so we've got, this is, see, this is where it happens. So there's $57 here, and then it drops down to $56, and then it goes back up to $57. So this is what I was looking for, to find out those places where if the price drops down too quickly, then I know that I need to make an adjustment on the numbers that I have over on the left-hand side, so that they do continue to increase gradually going up. Now the sad part is there's no way that I have that I can just grab everything from this chart and enter it into that code table at this point right now to have this chart so that you can work with this and find out what are the best numbers for you. Where do you want that inflated price to go in, that little bit of extra profit for those sizes that you sell the most that are possibly the waste products too, because these are sizes that there's too much waste left over. So you want to compensate for that. So once you've created this chart and you've decided that you want to put it back into FrameReady, then you're going to go back into the program, go back to the code tables, and you're going to create this chart. Once you have it created, you can create multiples of them so that you can have another one in here as well. This one's going up to $14, I think. Oh, no, $13. So I named it Mat 13. And then I can try that one out as well on different products. But this just gives you that chance to create a curve. If we take a look at another option for pricing, and some people do use this, they'll create a price per united inch, and they'll use that for their mat boards instead. And so we've got our regular FrameReady default, we've got the combined formula. Now we're going to take a look at pricing your mat board with a price per united inch code table. And this is a code table that strictly just has, let's go take a look at the code table first before we see that. And this is strictly just a price per united inch, and then it goes up every 2 united inches. It's $1.38 per united inch. I picked that number because that's what it was on the other mat board at 100 united inches. It was $138. So I just picked this one to give you some sort of comparison with it. So if we take a look at the list here, it's going up by every 2 united inches, the prices are increasing, and that's the only way that we're going to price this mat board is price per united inch. Now, if fine for a individual cost on the mat, but of course not all mats cost the same amount. So you're going to need to have multiple of these codes, and it would be wise to say, okay, anything that's less than $10 will have one code table, everything less than 15 or 12 or 16, and you decide how fast those numbers are going to increase and how much this is going to increase as well. This will still help you so that as the cost goes up, so then if the cost on this goes up to $20.11 at some point in time, it will no longer be using code table Mat 138. I'm going to click there, and it's now automatically gone up to code table M139. So you can see that it has gone up into the next code table because it's more than $20. So if it's still 18, then it's going to be the lower code table. So you could use the code tables that way as well. And if we take a look at the comparison screen here, so this is our FrameReady regular one. This is the one with a code that's inflating the curve in there. And this is the one that's using the per united inch price. It's a flat per UI, and I specifically designed it so that it would match at the 60 mark. But then you can see that it's pricing a lot higher for the other sizes. So it's up to you how you want to price them out. That's just another option that you have. Another thing that I like to use the code tables for is if you have 32 by 40 mats and people don't type in the correct mat board number, because there would be a different mat board number for an oversized mat that's a 40 by 60, and I want them to start typing in the correct mat board number. You could change the code, and in this case what we're going to do is we're going to have one that says this is a, let me go back to my list view here, there. So this is the one that says nothing over 32 by 40. So I've created a code table that I can combine with my regular pricing, and it says there are no mats. This is specifically for nothing over 32 by 40. So the minute that it goes over 32 by 40, you'll see on the right-hand side that it's created an outrageous price. So if I'm on a work order screen on over to 32.5 or 33 by 40, it's going to create this outrageous price so that people know they need to put in the other Matboard number, which is on the back of the sample, usually if it comes in a larger size. Now to create that code table, over here on the left-hand side, we'll go take a look at that code table, and it's really easy. All I've done is anything up to 32 by 40 does not have any amount added into the retail price. So it's going to calculate out the accurate price. But I've added another line in here that says 200 by 200. So as soon as it goes over 32 by 40, it's going to add in $9,999. Which definitely gets your attention and says, let's look for the oversized mat now. So the next thing you're going to say is, I like that. You can also do the same thing for the 40 by 60. If you do this on the 40 by 60, if you don't want them to use it for smaller mats, then you can put a line in here saying that nothing below 32 by 40 should be used. We're only using it for these oversized items. And that's an option. If you decide it's okay for them to use this larger mat for pricing out those smaller items, then you can remove that. Just click on the teal colored X and it will remove that line from that listing. So I'm going to click the Done button and we're going to go back here. Remember that if you are going to set this up, that you want to have these codes in, you need to go to the pricing options and defaults screen and add that into your formula. So that if I wanted that in here, I would add this in to say nothing over 32 by 40. Okay, I'm going to combine the pricing together, but over on the right-hand side, I only want this formula to be applied to 32 by 40 mats, which means now I'm going to duplicate this. And now I've got another one in here, and I might have this one be the nothing over 40 by 60, and this one is only going to be used for 40 by 60 mats. And now I'm probably going to duplicate that again because I know that there are mats that are not 40 by 60 and are not 32 by 40, and there's some different size. Some of the suppliers have some unusual sizes. They might have a 22 by 28 or other sizes. So I'm going to leave one that's generic. You always have to have one default that is generic to cover all the other oddities or other sizes or products. So because I've left this blank in the supplier field, it's going to apply to all suppliers. If I decide that I put a supplier in there, then it's only going to apply it to that one supplier, and that's it. Okay, so I'm going to go back up, and I'm going to take that out. I'm going to go back up. The other thing is that once you've created this, make sure you apply it. And if you are applying it, do the generic one first, the one that's applied to everybody first, and then you can do the ones that are applied by the dimensions or by the specific supplier. Okay, clicking the Done button, we're going to go back and say, now, what if you wanted to have this combined, nothing over 32 by 40, but you also want to use the mat curve to put that curve in? You can do that, put in multiple code tables onto one record, but there is a way to combine those two code tables into one. And that's what we're going to look at now. So I've created one specific code table that's going to do the mat curve for nothing over 32 by 40. And I still kept this really short for the code because I've got a note. Any of those notes that you've typed in show up down here at the bottom of the screen. So it says mat curve, nothing over 32 by 40. So even though the code is really short, okay, the note shows up down here. So I'm going to click on the code table to see what it looks like. So it still has that curve where the small dollar amount is added for those sizes that I want it to climb up to and then back down again. And then down at the bottom here, I've got 72. So it's important that I've got the 72 in there. And when it's 72, anything between 66 and 72 has $0 added onto it. But the minute that it goes over the 72, that's when we have that 9,999 that's added onto it. Now, you're probably wondering what was the difference from the other mat curve one. So let's go back and take a look at that. So the mat curve, the regular one, at the bottom of it, it has the 0 on it. So anything that's above $66 up to 200 has 0. So it's just the 72 is what we've done here. We've added 72 is 0, and then the 200, anything between 72 and 200 now has $999 on it. So just take a look back at that one down at the bottom of the screen. So there's our 0. It tops out at 72 United inches, and above that we add on the outrageous number. So that gives us the combined formula plus the curve plus the nothing over a certain size. And so you can still continue to do that on any of them. So the mat curve is in there. We took a look at the Matboard. Fabric is another place where people like to use the combined formula. And one of the things that they'll do with the fabric, and we'll just go take a look at the marked records that we have here, and we're going to go to the fabric, because what you can do in the fabric is have a substrate. So this is the fabric, this is just for the fabric, but then the pricing of the substrate, if you don't want to type in the exact substrate you're going to be using on the work order, some people say we use the same thing all the time, it's the same price all the time, we never change it. So you can create your code table to put that substrate pricing right onto the fabric record, so that when you type the fabric number in, it's already priced it out for the substrate that's going to be used. And it's just standard, you're always going to use it. So you've added in the code, you've added in the combined pricing structure for it. That's how to use it for the fabric. So now let's go take a look at mounting, because mounting is another place where you may want to add it in. Sometimes people will want to use it for their Foamcore, and if we go back here to my found records, there we go, we've got a record for the Foamcore. So rather than using the markup alone, what I've done is I've added in a code table, and this is going to be a labor code table, so I could put labor in there as well. Or you could just use a code table, strictly just a code table for mounting. Code tables are great for if you have an old pricing chart that you want to duplicate and you want to recreate it because you spent a lot of time on it and it's perfect. Another reason is that if you're outsourcing something and the supplier comes back in and they say, this is the pricing chart that I have, you can go over to the code tables, recreate that pricing chart that the supplier has given you, and then use the adjust by percentage, so you can enter in their wholesale cost that they're charging you, then use the adjust by percentage to increase it by 200% or 250%, so until you get it to the profit margin that you need to make on it. So that's another way of using it. And some of you have taken the Jay Gold's class on pricing, and there's a way to fit that into FrameReady as well. So I'm going to go back to the menu here because we have this chart. This is another one of those handouts. So having taken Jay's class on pricing, this is an Excel spreadsheet that you can use to calculate out, and this one is specifically mounting, and that's where they're calculating it out by square inches. So this is saying if it's 5 by 7, this is the square inches that's on it. And he had a number in there that he gave out of 2 seconds. If you decide that you need to change that number, just use the bottom of the screen to change it, and it automatically changes this amount in here and then recalculates everything else. So I'm going to put it back to what the numbers were that I got from the class. So this is the seconds, so it's taking the total square inches, multiplying it by the 2 seconds and calculating it out. And then this is the base number of how many minutes it would take for the labor of mounting the item. And then it creates a total based on the seconds times the square inches, adding on this 12, and it's just adding those two numbers together basically. Now, whatever your shop hourly rate is, you want to add that in as well, because it's going to calculate how many cents per minute for your shop rate. And then what it does is it creates your labor on here. So this is a dollar value amount for the labor that you can create a code table now that's based on the specifications for your shop, for the mounting labor that you want to add in there, and now you have a chart that's going to do that. So you would still have to re-enter those numbers in to a code table, but the numbers are there, you know what you're going to be using, and it's easy enough to enter them into the code table, just typing them in. So if we go back to this, let's go take a look. And on here, I've got my Foamcore, and on the Foamcore up here, going to the code tables, we've got our code table that we've entered in for the mounting, and I'm combining that for the labor of the code table is going to be combined with the cost of the product times a markup, and those two numbers together are going to give me the retail prices that I'm going to be charging for whatever item it is that I'm charging, or whatever the labor is that I'm charging on it. Just a reminder that once you've done that, and if you have updated something, always go up to the top right hand corner and update the date up here as well. When you are working, and just click on the word today, when you are updating the items on the left hand side, those items are automatically changed with the date and the validation to say when they were done. The items below this that you have updated yourself, the only way that you're going to know when's the last time that I changed this or updated these prices is by changing that date. So now when you come back in, you know what the date was that you changed it, and it's up to date. Chrissy, let's stop right now, and we're going to do another poll, and then we'll see if there are any other questions.
Sounds good. Which items do you price with code tables? Glass, Matboard, labor, shipping, or other? And the questions that I have, what is the advantage of using code tables over formula pricing?
Depends on what the item is. If you were pricing out glass, code table is much better to use because you can price it out by the light size. So for example, if you had a piece of glass that was 16 by 20 by the formula, it's going to price it by the 38 United inches. However, if you have a piece of glass that's 8 by 28, that's still 36 United inches, but you have to get it out of a larger piece of glass, a 22 by 28. So if you price by the code table, it will use the XY value on the glass to price it by the light size. So for glass, code tables by the light size using the XY value is best. If you were to create a code table for your glass that's by the United inch value, I would say that's not the best option. It's still a code table. So some code tables work better for other items. If you were doing labor, yep, price per UI, that's.
Okay, and then I have two more questions. I'm using the software out of the box for the last 2 years. He feels like this is bad.
I would say you definitely want to go in there and tweak things. Go ahead and create a work order and take a look, analyze that one work order. There's a work order cost of goods report that you can get. You want to see when you got the bill, the invoice from the manufacturer, what did they charge you? Is everything coming up the same in FrameReady, or have you changed the items? Because definitely I would want to go in and say for mounting, my cost for mounting is going to be different than somebody who's out on the East Coast or somebody who's on the West Coast, or if you're in a high-end neighborhood. If you're rurally located, you've got extra shipping. You want to include that shipping in, and you can use the code tables to add the shipping on there as well. So you really want to tweak the pricing to make sure that you're covering all of your costs. So starting with it in the box, that's fine. It gives you a starting place, but you definitely want to go in there and tweak it and analyze the prices.
Okay, I have 2 more questions, but I'm going to close the poll first.
Okay.
And then share the results.
Okay. And go ahead and what are the other 2 questions, Chrissy?
We have hundreds of mat samples. Would we need to do this for each of them, or can we batch this kind of thing?
You can batch it. Most definitely. So with that pricing options and defaults button, it's automatically going to price it out based on the cost of the mat. So all of your mats are going to be priced based on what the wholesale cost is that you paid for it. And you don't have to worry about all the samples that you have, because all of the mats, whether you have the sample or you don't have the sample, they're going to be priced in the program. So you don't have to put this in on each individual mat board record. The molding, Matboard, and fabric all have the pricing options and defaults so that you can apply that globally to all of them at once, fast.
Okay, and our last question is, how about stretching where there is labor and materials? Material changes, but not the labor. Gallery wrap versus standard 3/4 inch stretchers.
Right, okay. Chrissy, can we close the poll? I think I'm going to use the screen for that one. Thank you. Yeah. So, and I think you're talking about stretchers and having a different markup on your stretchers and the labor. So of stretching, which definitely you would. If you're going to be doing stretching, canvas stretching, usually that's listed under the mounting, and we might have something in there that says canvas stretching. You could have it listed in here. You could also have it listed under fitting as well, if you're just doing the labor on it and you only want to price out the labor. But on the work order screen, when you're entering in a stretcher bar, the stretcher bar would go into frame 1. So I would enter that in first. And then let me just insert that over and then find a stretcher in here. And they're all listed as an extender. So I'm going to have a different markup on my extender or my stretcher bar than I would on the stretching that I'm going to be using. So this is priced out the stretcher bar, but then under possibly extra or fitting or any of these, whichever ones I have, then I'm going to have the canvas stretching, and that's going to price out the canvas stretching on it. So the stretcher bar goes here, the canvas stretching goes here, or if you wanted to put it in under the fitting. Fitting, though, is a different pricing structure than mounting is. So if we go back here and take a look, and I'm going to click on just one of these records. So fitting, extra, hardware, and mat design are all, let's go over here, set price, minimum, and code, and then a price per UI. So there's no markup on them. However, if you were to go to the mounting field, this is where you have the cost, and you also have a dimension of what the size is, and this has the markup as well. Okay, but there isn't a price per code UI, so it's a different structure. So it depends on how you want to price it as to which area it's going to go into. Okay, so the results of the poll were really interesting, and we're going to move on now to glazing. So I did show you actually in the glazing that you do have that glass pricer icon here, and this is how you can create a code table just by entering in, decide on which glass you want to use as the amount, and then put your markup in and your set price, and then click on the build a new table, and it's going to put in the standard sizes. As I said, you can tweak this. There's a whole video on how to use this screen to really hone it in to make sure you've got the sizes that you should have on there, remove the other ones, how to change all the items on here. But once you've selected the code table that you're updating, so that if this was my conservation clear or my premium clear glass, whichever one it is, I would pick that, and then I would click on create or update the code table, and it would update this code table. If I was making a new code table, I want to go down and say I need number 9, and so I'm going to change that to the GL09, and now when I click on this, it's going to create a brand new code table in here for me. I can type in what the name of it is and then select to enter the date up here. Any sizes that I want to remove, I can, and then of course I always like to have my safety net down at the bottom to say if I ever go over the size that is available, and say there isn't anything in some of these sizes, then I know that this flag will come up and alert me to that size. And then type in the name, but you want to connect it. So I don't have any items using this code table right now. The way to connect a code table to an item is to go back to the item, and let's go find something that doesn't have a code table, and doesn't matter what it is. I'm going to pick one of these items and click on the tab for code, click in the large window of the box that's available there, type in the letters for the code. If I typed in GL, it just automatically goes down to this section, and now I can select that code and it's pricing it out by that code. If I decide that I don't want to use that code, and you can see the code is up at the top here, and I should change the date to say I've updated this and we're now pricing by a new structure. But if I don't want to use that, then I'm going to click the clear button and it goes back to where it was, because it was just price per letter that I had on here before. So that's just a quick overview for the glazing. I want to move into the molding next, because for all of our Canadian people or anybody who's using shipping or adjoining fees, you would want to take a look at this. So I'm going to go to Roma because I know that they have a joining fee. Under the code table up here, don't use this section if you're using the joining fee. Click on the dark blue tab and go down to the minimum and surcharges area. And this is where you can enter in the joining fee. So you'll notice that what they've done is they've changed things so that they don't really necessarily give a join fee anymore. It's the chop fee plus whatever the extra dollar amount is for the joining fee. So the join code that I've created, and when I click on the code tables, it shows. So it's based on United Inch that they have. So anything less than 36 United Inches has $8 added onto it. Anything less than 59 but more than 36 is going to have $14 on it. So I've created this starting with a blank code table, gave it a name, and said that I wanted to use this. Now it isn't going to show the items on this screen, but over here on the right hand side you can see that the joining fee is there. The other thing that I'm going to let you know is that you won't see it added into the price sampler. The items over here on this side on this screen for the minimum surcharges do not appear on the price sampler. They only appear on the work order screen. So if you did want to go and see what the prices are going to be like, you'd have to create a work order and then just enter that molding in to see, and you'll see that the $8. But go ahead and create those codes. And again, when I go to the pricing options and defaults, because I want that on all of my Roma items, so show the defaults that I have in here. If I have one specifically for Roma, then what I would do is, let's go down here and we'll say if this was Roma, and I'll change that to Roma. So if this was the one for Roma, then I would go to minimum and surcharges, and I would select in here to say that I want the Roma join fee added onto it. And then I would click apply to group, and this would add that join fee onto all of my molding specifically from Roma. Okay, so that's how you would add it on to all of the molding. For the Canadian suppliers, Canadian clients, you're going to be using the code table up here. And if we go, okay, so here's a Roma molding in the Canadian version. You'll see that almost all of the items that you have from a company will have a code. If you're pricing by length, go ahead and use the length. But in Canada, they do not supply a chop or a join wholesale cost. And the reason for that is because it changes all the time, and it changes with the size. So that if you were ordering a 5x7, the cost per join might be $3.50. But then if it's a 16x20, it might be $3.40. If it's a 24x36, it might be $3. So it changes, the cost per foot changes depending on what size you order. So what they do is they create a code table. And when you click on the show code, it shows you what the retail price would be for each of these different sizes and the date when this was last updated. If you click on there and you see an older date, then you know that you need to update the code tables. And you can click right here to do that, but you can also go back to the main menu, click on Update Vendor Pricing, and at the top of the screen where you've got your vendors that you need to update, you can add any US or Canadian vendors with the other tabs, but this is the tab for the code tables. It tells you all of the code tables that are available for the retail price charts, the matrices that are supplied in Canada. If you're a US client, you do not need this at all. Don't add them in. It's just an awful lot of codes in there. But you do want to update that codes, and it will update all of them at once. If you're wondering which pricing is better and you want to compare the two of them together, then what you would do is take a look at the pricing that they're quoting here for the 36 United Inch. So we've got 83.66, and if I uncheck that box to say I'm not going to use the code table and it's gone, now I can come back and see if I was pricing it out based on my markup that I have in here. For the 16x20, instead of 86, it's $88. So your pricing might be lower, it might be higher. You might want to check and compare. If you are using the matrix pricing for all of your suppliers, you can click on the button to select all codes, and this will enable it on all of the records, and you'll just click enable. Okay, or you can apply it to just one vendor, in which case click the enable to apply it just to that one supplier. Okay, if you find that the check mark is missing on one, you can go in and add it, or you can say on this particular one, I don't want to use it. Again, for the matrix, if you decide that the matrix that you're using is too low, because the number that's in here is 2 times the wholesale cost of what they're going to charge you for the join, and this is for the join times 2. If you decided that that's too low, remember that anybody can do this. Go up to perform, go down to adjust pricing by a percentage, and if you wanted to change all of your code tables, you could do that. But if you wanted to change all of the matrix pricing because 2 times markup is not suitable for your area, maybe you need 2.5, then up here you're going to type in 1.25 to increase all the matrices from a 2 times markup to a 2.5 markup, and that was the magic number. So anybody who's saying that I want to just increase all of my glazing markups, you can go in and change that to say I want to increase it by 2%, or I want to increase it by 3% or whatever. And you can choose individual items that you want to increase by a percentage, or you can say everything in your database. You can say at the end of the year, I want to make sure everything is updated and increased by whatever my percentage is for my wage. That's an option for you. And do double check before you put any number into that box that it is the number that you want it to be. Check it out on one Moulding, because you can check it out on the current record, or give us a call and we'll help you with that. So this is how to use code tables, and I know that was a lot of information for everyone to absorb, but the code tables really do offer a lot of variety and give you a lot of different options in your pricing. So Prissy, are there any other questions about the code tables?
I do have one last question. So if I wanted to use the glass pricer to create a code table for something other than glass, technically I could?
Yes, you could. That's thinking outside the box and being very creative. Yes, absolutely. Because you're right, it's not just for glass pricing. That's what it was designed for. But like everything in FrameReady, you could use it to create a code table for any item that you want. If you had printing services or something else that you wanted to price with, you could use the code table to do that, and the glass pricer to do that.
Awesome. So I think that sums everything up, and really good job, Carol. That was amazing.
Oh, thank you, Christy.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you, everyone, for attending. Looking forward to seeing you again.